Yeah. So what you're saying is that the binary choice oftentimes limits the expressions a person can have, right? And so your friends are people who may have values that are antithetical to the stereotypical persona of a Trump supporter, right? And so you as a person value what, like, people or policies or even attitudes that are more inclusive and not so restrictive to this or that. Is that an okay summation?
Yeah. It's like my way of explaining why Kamala lost. There's
Yeah,
these three, in my opinion, there's these the way that my mind works is that there's these three different groups of people on the left.
sure.
And this is why Kamala didn't win, in my opinion, is because first, because not many people voted. And then the second is a lot of people on the left, like the far left, they're the Free Palestine people. They voted third party. A lot of them did because they didn't like Kamala's position on the Israel war. So that hurt the election. And then also the people that were like centrist left, kind of, they went Joe Biden last time, and they weren't too happy with his 4 years, so they switched over to Trump again because they probably voted for Trump last time.
Right, right.
No, and then put together the fact that a lot of people didn't vote. I mean, I saw this video of these people, these younger people getting interviewed on November November 7th, and they were like, "Hey, did you guys vote today?" It's fun. They were like, "Oh yeah, we're about to head over there," and they didn't know that the election had already happened. That's how out of touch America is compared to the other parts of the world, where elections are like election day is a holiday where people actually like take the day off to do this thing.
Yeah, I mean, you're touching on a lot of great points that there's just like we don't value civics anymore, or we don't create access. We don't like it's not a priority for Americans to know the civic system. It is a priority for Americans to work, to have a in job. You know what I mean?
What this election really told us is that people were way more concerned about economy issues
Yeah.
than they were about abortion, which is interesting. They were, and they what they saw with Kamala was a lot of like Trump this, Trump that, Trump is that, and it also didn't help that she wasn't. People felt that she wasn't democratically sworn in, like she was forced upon us, kind of. We didn't get to know her too well, and on top of that, she wasn't really that popular amongst Latinos, and because of the border crisis, actually, a lot of Latinos are against an open border policy or a more like forgiving. I'm kind of a globalist. I'm kind of I wouldn't say I'm a socialist or a democratic socialist, but I definitely look at countries like Denmark or Sweden favorably, or Finland. Even in my country, Guatemala, or my mom's country, should I say, because I'm also Cuban, we have universal healthcare. And I mean, when you think of progressive in Guatemala, it's vastly different than progressive here. When you think of progressive here, you're thinking Americans, like traditional Midwest people, or conservatives. They're thinking, oh, blue haired, they, them, wants to go to the bathroom. And they pretty much look at the traditional way of looking at things when it comes to gender stuff. So
Sure.
that stuff scared them off. They voted Trump because of that too. And
Right. And I think what I'm hearing from you, Julio, and this is my read, is that we have this binary system that just disrespects people and or doesn't value people, and we are almost missing out as Americans.
I think that the binary choice, the two party system, is hurting America.
Right.
I think right now it's the most divided it's ever been. But I think that the Trump side of things, the Republican side of things, is growing. And I think that after Trump's gone, I think there's just going to be more. There's going to be more. I think another Republican's going to win.
Right.
Yeah, in my opinion, judging from the outcome of this election, but we
And
never
is
know.
it That's right. So what is the worst thing about society to you then? Just broadly speaking.
Worst thing about society, I think social media, and I think that social media has really hurt us. I think false information has hurt us. I think that America is I think the fact that we didn't, and invest in our education fast enough to meet the demands of of the growing world that is social
Evolving
media.
world. We call it evolving world.
I remember you and I had a really great conversation at Anthony's. I remember, I won't ever forget that, because you highlighted a lot of really cool things and you taught me a lot of stuff. But it made me think about my fear of social media even more, and the fact that I even was getting pulled left, getting pulled right. But ever since I graduated from Western and as I've gotten
Mm.
older, I'm a little bit more right. Like not saying I'm full conservative. I'm more like I tell people, I'm more Bill Maher-ian. I'm like where Bill Maher is. And people, in my opinion, if you upset, if you're at a position where both sides are mad at you, I think you're probably in the more logical area, because honestly, most of America isn't really far left or far right. They're either center left or center right.
Right.
Most extreme left or extreme right people are in these real either urban areas or real rural areas. You know what I'm saying?
So, what do you believe is one of the reasons that Trump and the largely Republican Congress was elected?
Oh man, there's so many factors, because a lot of things that they believe is not true. Like Democrats being part of some secret organization that eats babies, or the fact that some people on the right think that global warming is caused by Jewish space lasers, or just all this climate change denial stuff. A lot of stuff that really scared a lot of the American people that don't watch MSNBC. They just either watch Fox News or they go on the web like my friend does, or my other friends do that are on the right. They go online and indoctrinate themselves. And then they kind of they go, hey, I read this article. This is the truth. This is what they're doing to us. And they're so convinced that this is the truth that they block out everything else. They just go, all media is lying to you. And the truth of the matter is, it's kind of gray. Like, yeah, sure, I see what they're saying. A lot of news is just them repeating things to kind of get more numbers, but some of it is true. You know what I mean? And some of it isn't. But do the American people have what it takes to kind of be able to tell what's real or not? I don't think so.
Do you feel like that perspective is elitist?
Elitist? No, I think most of the world, like most of the Western part of the world. I mean, I went to England for 2 weeks and a half, and I talked to everybody. There's a lot of conservatives below Heathrow in more like suburban areas, where the Midwest of America or whatever, who looked at Trump favorably. But one thing that they all had in common is that they did like the monarchy, which was interesting. But most of the people that I met did not like Trump. In fact, they even like, if we had moments where we got threatened, like, "Oh, you're not a Trump supporting American, are you?" I'm like, no, no. And we sometimes they can be like, yeah, all the time. Oh yeah, I voted for Trump. Just kidding. No. But I think that, judging from my experience in England and parts of Scotland, that like most of the Western world has a good grasp of reality. And compared to America, I don't know, man. I don't think so.
I feel yeah. I feel yeah. And I didn't mean for that question to come off as like a clap back or anything. But some of the criticism of Democrats that I've heard, especially their messaging, who they were focusing on, and the results of them not focusing on working class Americans who may or may not be educated, right? To some degree. Like,
Well, they don't like hearing the truth, really.
but that's beside the fact. The reason this podcast exists is so that like we can understand differences and create a pathway forward for everyone, right?
I'm not calling anybody dumb, but the fact of the matter is, how do we even come to measure that? If the education system is so broken, we can't even like,
Say
you know,
that.
so
Say that. That like how do we have a standard when the education system is so broken everywhere? That is
yeah,
that's it's powerful, and I want to hear more from more teachers kind of on their perspective on that. But no, that was great.
yeah. It's not something like where you compare Massachusetts to Oklahoma, and Oklahoma ranks the lowest in education, and you look at Massachusetts and it's like all blue, and you look at Oklahoma is all red. Not saying that all conservatives are less educated. I'm just saying that the majority of them are.
Well, the picture you're talking about was a little bit more specific, and I'm going to pull it up and just recite. So the picture you showed all red Oklahoma with all of its counties all red voting, meaning that they're all red voting. And beside it, it says that Oklahoma is 44th in education, 49th in healthcare, 44th in quality of life, 50th in test scores, and then top 10 worst in poverty. And then it has a picture of Massachusetts, where most of all of its counties are all blue. It's a completely blue state. And its rankings are first in education, second in healthcare, first in quality of life, first in test scores, and top 10 least poverty state. And so that stark difference between those outcomes, I mean, those are determinants of health. Those are real determinants of success, health, wealth, and all these things. And so it's interesting that
One thing that a conservative would say would be like, oh, well, how accurate is that thing you pulled up? I mean, you just pulled it up out of nowhere, right? I'm like, well, I'm sure we could probably look into it some more, but I'm just saying I'm not surprised if that photo displays the truth.
sorry, you guys, Julio might share inaccurate information, like all of us. I mean, I'm
not a political scientist, and I'm not like a senator or anything. I'm just a normal human being. I'm not going to look at that photo and look at it as I'm going to look at that and go, oh, I wouldn't be surprised. Going, oh, this is the truth. I mean, there's a difference.
Sure. Well, but that, I mean, that's a social point there for me. But I mean, because I'm curious how much of us really mean what we say or see on the internet. I mean, like the internet is such allows for so much anonymity that of course people are going to troll, of course people are going to be assholes, but you mentioned it, and so you thought that was one of the worst things about social media, right?
Exactly. This is amazing. Amazing that we were able to do this on this podcast, because that right there shows the danger of social media, and people get their information from social media now. And so me sharing that photo without actually looking at it looking to see if it was actually accurate was a mistake by me. And but I'm not afraid to admit that. I mean, and other people are.
But when you say mistake, like your audience is your friends and your family and like people. So it's like, I mean, first of all, just because you're on a podcast doesn't mean like you should feel harsh and stuff, even though like, and I say that because like audience members, like this is a safe space for conversation. And like, I've laid out some rules for the podcast, or some ground rules, or some community agreements and stuff. And just the reality is what we strive for in this podcast. We don't go for perfection, we go for progress. And so this is a good point that I'm saying, because I know I do the same thing. I've had to recall things as an elected, well, not as an elected official, because I don't actually communicate much things on my elected channel, but on my personal channel back in the past, when I was just posting whatever I was like passionate to post about, like I got caught posting inaccurate information, and I had to recall it, because that's how I do on mine. But there's so many of us that do that. You know what I mean?
I do apologize sometimes, like, because I enjoy doing that. It shows humility, I think.
Yeah, you're great. Next question. Do you feel like you did enough to affect the election in the way you wanted to go?
Yeah. I mean, we all did what we could, right? And it wasn't just me going, oh, I voted for Kamala, or I told my mom to vote for Kamala, or I mean, my mom was going to vote for Kamala regardless. She does not like Trump. I told people to vote. I didn't tell people who to vote for, but I tried to tell as many people. I talked to a lot of people who were not voting. Like they're like I talked to this lady who I met in Spokane, who has 3 kids, right? Who I met because I was visiting a friend, and I asked her why she isn't voting, and she's like, "Well, it just gets in the mail. I never do. I don't really care." She basically just does not care, and there's so many people that just don't care and don't want to be part of it. And that is incredibly depressing. And I think that America needs a wake up call. So I'm not too sad or scared anymore that Trump won, because I'm kind of thinking my nihilistic side's coming out a little bit, and I'm not too happy with America right now. Not when, and that, when it comes to that attitude, I'm just the wake up call that the conservatives think is going to happen. Like they think it's going to be for the good, right? And it's going to look that way, probably, maybe. And
I
on
need,
our
I need you to articulate what you're talking about because you're leaving out stuff that I'm following because I'm having an organic conversation with you, but the people don't know what you are talking about under. Yeah.
So the people that didn't participate in the election
Yes.
or ever, there's a huge growing majority of that.
Yeah.
And there's many reasons why that's happening. And I'm not going to go into that because it's a long conversation. But I will say this, that the shakeup that the Republicans think Trump is going to do,
Yeah.
they think he's going to fix everything, the border, the Trump war, he's going to pull out of all these wars, yada, yada. He might, and then Putin will win and yada, yada. But if worst comes to worst, what we hope for is that America will kind of wake up to this, like we thought it did last time. But the truth is that Joe Biden won by a sliver. We didn't really woke up. It's not like everybody was like, we got to go vote. That's what we thought happened because Joe Biden won, but we didn't really look at it. We didn't go, oh, he won by a little bit. And that's another reason why we lost, because we didn't take it seriously.
Right. On top of that, you're saying that Democrats probably should have used the last election as a wake-up call to do some real groundwork to set up for a victory this year, which they did not do. Right.
Yeah. People like Bill Maher called the fact that Trump was going to come back again. He's a shark. He was going to swim. He was swimming around, and he was going to, how sharks do, they come back to a certain area where they feed. That's what Trump is. He's a big shark. He comes back and he feeds. And so he basically called that he was gonna run for president again. And again, people shrugged it off. People just the Department of Justice really failed us, because they concentrated on the Stormy Daniels trial, and I'm like, come on, really? What's like the less important one?
I hear you. So the last question is, what do you want to say to yourself 4 years in the future? So like today, actually, if you were in 4 years in the future and you saw a video, you giving yourself a message, what would that message say?
I kind of live day by day. I don't really. I mean, I remember an ex-girlfriend telling me, Julio, because I had a real problem with this. Like I always thought in the past, or I thought in the future. I was never in the moment. I was always concerned about the future or the present or the past. I was never really truly awake. The only thing that I really do is try to focus on day-to-day things. Like I try to be as good of a person every day, but I have my bad days. I can be really, really messed up, but I'm human. And that's the election is, we're human. We make mistakes, right? And we're going to hopefully learn from it. I am a little pessimistic about it, but
We're going to learn from this mistake.
yeah, I don't think we are. But I think what I'll tell myself in 4 years from now is that I hope that you've listened to your heart.
Yeah. I love that. Love letter to yourself. Spiritually.
But I don't
By
know
the
how,
way, you were striking some very spiritual tones there, sir. So like,
if I'm around in 4 years, cool. If I, good job.
right. No, I know that's right. And a lot of people would probably say it. I hope you're still alive. And like,
Oh, I said the stress that we have to undertake, it's like aging us probably faster than we think.
yeah, which is why I'm like an advocate of like, do what you got to do to relax and like not be so stressed because 4 years still a lot. I don't know. It's 365 times four. Thank you, Julio, so much. We're gonna conclude this episode as we always do. We are all different, but we are all also the same. What matters is we recognize that and move forward to make a better world for all of us. So thank you, Julio. I super appreciate you.